And we're recording. Hey everyone, I hope you're having a blessed day. I would like to show you something I've been working on. I wanted to get some opinions on it to see if it was worth posting on NexusMods. Now, I would like to apologise off the bat for the microphone quality. If you remember my old videos, then you'll know that this is a substantial decrease, or perhaps an increase depending on how much you like your ears to be heard. But all of that aside, I have made this. I've made an Anglo Saxon overhaul mod for Vlandia here, for Bannerlord, and you can see we're in the new War Sales expansion. So if we go over here, there's the Nords. Now, I am a bit irked because all of these settlement names I did change when I made this. For example, Usank Castle here was Osmark, and here, one that I recall off the top of my head, Rovolt, I renamed to a Hrothwald. So that's a bit sad, but I think this is a fairly comprehensive overhaul. You can see Mr. Derthert de Merok has been changed to Deurhert Merraking, so you can see he's got some different equipment here. Anyways, not all lords look like that. I thought that might be plausible for an Anglo-Saxon king, because they did have those crested helms, but a more regular lord would look like this. Yours is not a face I know. Anyways, and you can see they've all been renamed, and the same is true for the regular faction names. So when you make your character, he'll be given an Anglo-Saxon name. You can see that all of these notables here have Anglo-Saxon names. So let's move on to the troop tree, because that's where the fun lies in modding, at least in my opinion. I did some other stuff as well for immersion. I redid all of the peasants. So if you go into a town, for example, all of the equipment for the peasants' characters in the game has been updated to be more suitable for the historical plausibility of this overhaul. Here's a Saghergera here. Those are nasty units. They have a set of these javelins that one-shot you. But yeah, so you can see changes here and there to the characters. I made some custom body properties so that they looked a bit more English rather than, you know, sort of continental European French. Now, let's go to the troop tree, because I said I'd go and... it's already up, very nice. So this is the full troop tree for the War Sales expansion. If you were to be playing on the regular tree, these two characters, the Ship Farrand and the Holmstormer, would not be in the game. But I added those in as a sort of shock ship force. And they do have throwing axes. The Anglo-Saxons never used throwing... I don't care. I've gone for a sort of mix on this troop tree between historical accuracy and Bannerlord friendliness. So what that means is some of these units would look to be underpowered at first glance. For example, the Vlandish veteran Fjordsman here, most of them don't have chainmail, some of them don't have helmets, and this is a tier 4 unit. If you go to tier 3, only 1 in 3 of them has a helmet, and they wear varying types of woolen tunics, which is what the Saxons would have been wearing. So you might say to yourself, well, how the hell am I supposed to win any battles with these guys? Now, they have fairly good weapons. This is your main line, and these is what I would sort of call glass cannons. You're not going to be able to hold down a hailstorm of arrows or projectiles with them, but they have nasty weapons. I've made these Fjordsman axes here. They have a high swing speed, which is important. They have a longer weapon length than some of the axes in the game, and they do a fair amount of damage, which when you combine with the one-handed skill does decent damage. And when you get a good infantry captain, you'll be able to wipe the floor with your opponents. So you want to put these guys... You can really mix them between your front line and your flank. But the real flankers are these guys here, and these are your skirmisher lines. So we go up to the Hathraman here. Look at him. Oh, look at that moustache. Absolutely glorious. So this will be your basic skirmisher. He just gets a simple javelin. He's basically a Sturgian woodsman. This guy, he gets the tier 3 javelins, which really I think are tier 4. They do 101 damage. They're basically like a broadblade javelin, and you have this hunter unit. The Anglo-Saxons, they hunted with throwing spears, so I thought it would be appropriate to give this guy throwing spears in combination with the fact that the Anglo-Saxons, they didn't really use archers in vast quantities in battle. They are depicted, but they're not really, not often. So I thought we would have bows starting at tier 4 for the best accuracy here. I've added one cavalry unit, and my concept for this unit was that it would essentially just be a messenger. He's lightly armoured. This guy doesn't even have chainmail, look at him. But in Bannerlord, cavalry are really important. Not in their regular function, they kind of suck when they're used as an offensive unit, but if you can use them to effectively screen against enemy archer fire, and they're so important. I thought, you know, the faction's going to struggle too much if we don't have one cavalry unit. So this guy's basically like a battalion mounted skirmisher. I didn't want to give him a spear because the Anglo-Saxons absolutely did not fight from horse with lances, so I didn't give him that, but he's got fairly decent equipment. He's got a goggled helm to denote his status as a high status warrior. This guy has a nasal on his helmet. You'll notice that these regular Fjordsman troops, they have these, you know, these sort of lower tier Spangen helms, or they have basically just hoods to cover their heads from the cold. Only when you get to tier 5 do they have these, do they have a nasal. Not so over here. These guys basically get low tier nasal helms because these are going to be your true skirmisher units. In the Warsails expansion, they also function as mariner troops. Because the Anglo-Saxons were seafaring people, so I thought, okay, we can make an archer line and a sort of faux cavalry line, and then we can have our skirmishers basically be sea raiders, because we do know that the Anglo-Saxons had the Shipfjord, or the ship army. It's mentioned in the chronicles, so I thought we'd have these kind of sea soldiers here. So yeah, these have some absolutely devastating javelins. These Angons do over 100 damage, and these guys, you know, being skirmishers, they have good throwing skill, so they know how to use them. They have 140 actually. So yeah, they're lightly armoured. Some of them don't even have halberks, as you can see. Yeah, no van braces, I don't really care. That's the other thing I struggled with when I was making this mod, was Bannerlord doesn't really have a lot of, I want to say, Germanic-looking armour pieces that aren't already used by either Sturgia or the Nordvig, so I thought, whatever, I'll just make do with what I have. So I ended up mixing and matching bits of armour between various factions that I thought would work. Here's our Anglo-Saxon looking character here. Anyways, going back to the troop tree, this is the regular troop tree, but there's also the noble troop tree. We'll briefly peruse over that, so let's see. Yes, that's right. The Knecht. This is actually the, in case you're wondering, this is the Old English etymological ancestor to the word we use knight today. So, these guys, they start out with fairly good equipment for a tier 2 unit. Your Fjordsmen, like I said, aren't going to be able to hold things down for very long, which is as it was in real life. They're still capable. Let's not mix and match here. They're still very capable units in certain scenarios, but you have to know how to use them, otherwise they'll go down. But not so with this line, and we'll show you in a moment. These guys have some custom weapons. This is the Angon, so the Anglo-Saxons use these long, heavy throwing spears, so I did my best to recreate it in Bannerlord. They can throw these, similar to how the Imperial Legionary has finally been fixed so that it can throw its pilum. So they can throw these, and it does like 150 damage. Really nasty weapon. I think it actually does bonus against shields, I'm not sure. I'd have to check the smithing part on the head, but we'll just, I think it's a tier 3. Tier 3, no, maybe a tier 4. Well, it's the harpoon head. I don't know if it does extra damage on throwing. Yeah, let's see. So if we go to tier 3, then we use the, here we go, thrown. No, it doesn't do extra damage for shields like the Pelham head. That's unfortunate, but whatever. Still a devastating weapon. Some of these guys, yeah, some of these guys get the nice nasal helm. We're going for a sort of high status troop line here, so I thought it was appropriate to give them nasals. They get Seaxes at tier 1, hatchet, sort of, you know, just Raider Axe. Low tier weapons. When you get into tier 3 though, you get nice proper weapons. Again, we're going for noble lines here, so I thought it was fitting to have a high frequency of swords, because that was a status weapon in England during the Anglo Saxon period. This is a very, very good sword. It places quite highly on the Bannerlord sword list, which you can check by turning cheat mode on and then going into the item list. It's quite far down there, which means it's a high tier, it's good. Crucially, it has a good swing speed of 90 and a fair good damage as well, and it's long. That's a very good combination to have. You don't want something like what the Vlandians have, so if I go for... well, actually, I can't show you, but they have a weapon, and it's probably still here in the game. Let me see if I can find it. Let's just turn cheat mode on. Yeah, we'll get rid of that. Here we go. Yeah, we'll find the Vlandian sword that all their units use. It's a terrible sword, really terrible. Here is it, let's see, yeah, this wide-fulled broad arming sword and this rigid arming sword. It's got good damage, and it's long, but you see the problem is it's got this 86 swing speed, so it takes too long for your units to swing, and they get interrupted when they're fighting the enemy. So I took that into account when I was designing the weapons. And as they upgrade, they get better swords. He still has his regular sword, but if you go to the second set here, you can see he's got a patterned broadsword, which is even better, does more damage, it's longer. So this is a really good weapon, and these guys all have helmets now. If you go back to the Drichtbaron here, only half of them get helmets. But these guys, we're into full helmets now. These are proper, noble elite troops. Notice the names here. I did my best to choose appropriate names, so Yazith basically just means companion. Will Yazith means willing companion, so I thought that was a logical step. And these guys are also mariners, so you can use them to great effect on the sea. In my testing, they have been very effective in immolating the enemy with these delicious hang-ons. They get better shields as well. I know they didn't use iron-rimmed shields in the Anglo-Saxon period, but the truth is I'm just not skilled enough to model shields myself, and there's a very limited pool of shields in Bannerlord, so I had to make do with what I could, and I needed to find a way to make the noble units distinguishable easily on the battlefield, so I did it to make it so that these nobles have the different looking shields, and they incidentally have higher hit points, and that's also not a coincidence. You want these guys in your front line. They have strong helmets, 43 head armor, that's very good for a tier 4 unit. The original Vlandian tier 4 infantryman is absolutely terrible helmet. It's got like 18 armor or something. It's that Spangen helm over laced cloth, whatever, it's disgusting. They die so fast. So he has this brooched cloak as well, he's got a nice fitted mail shirt. I basically just adjusted some armors here and there to make balance a thing. But these guys crucially have mail mittens and chalsies as well. That's a big thing. If I go back to the Hurdman here, which is the tier 5, Hur is the U, kind of like how the Germans say it. This Y here, that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. These guys don't all have mail legs. They have, mix and match armor. Some of these guys don't have mittens because these are your best of the feudsmen. They wouldn't have standardized equipment. They would probably just have random bits and bobs of mail that they'd scavenged from years of violence. So they don't have that. So what that means is, if they catch a stray in the foot, they're going to be taking like 50 arrow damage. So that's not the case with your noble line. You can expect a more consistent performance with your noble troops. They get this disgusting, here it is, the Wigan Axe. Look at that. 90 swing speed, 75 length, 79 damage. This is what is going to enable you to go toe-to-toe with the Nords. Now, I'm going to say it outright. you will not win against Nordic troops in war sales with these guys, because they simply aren't as strong. The thing to do with the Saxons is to be crafty. If you go back to your troop line here, the Nords, if I can find it, let's see. That would be N. So yeah, here we go. We want Nord Spear Warrior. This is their only mainline javelin unit. They don't have a good javelin unit, except for this guy, and he's a tier 3. He's got this stupid leather vest, he's got this terrible helmet. You can one-shot these guys with most two-handed weapons. They run out of javelins fast because they only get one bag. So that's going to be your edge as a Saxon commander facing up against the Nords. You need to use your spears, your throwing spears, and your skirmishers to the greatest effect. And that's why I gave so many of those troops, basically half of their troops, even more than half, have throwing weapons. The Nords get axes, but they run out quickly. So the goal is shield, defend against the axes, move your troops into position, lure the AI around because it's kind of stupid. Yeah. The other thing to note is that the Nordic archer only gets one bag of arrows. So you'll be fighting a war of attrition against these guys if you manage to take out their infantry zerg. But we have a solution for that in the Straalbora. My Saxon keyboard is not activated. Let's see if I can change that. There we go. So I should be able to type Ash now. There we go. Straalbora, here we go. These guys get 2 sets of bodkin arrows, and they get U-bow. No mail for most of them, but yeah. Again, not many archers used in Anglo Saxon period. I chose the bodkin arrows specifically because they get 24. In medieval England, after the Anglo-Saxon period, but only briefly, it was a standard practice to have 2 bags of 24 arrows. So I decided to make it official and do that on the tier 5. Tier 4 only gets 1 bag, but he gets more of them in his bag. These tier 5 arrows also do 3 extra damage, so these are a fairly effective ranged unit. The thing is, you're just not going to see many of them. So I think that kind of balances it out, because despite the nerfs that they've made recently, archers are still ridiculous. I mean, these guys, these Fian champions are absolutely gross in my opinion. 64 3 damage arrows combined with this monster of a longbow. Thank God they don't have noble bows anymore. I mean, these guys are ridiculous still. So, you know, I wanted to give them a decent archer. Again, they're just not going to have many of them. The map isn't really changed. Vlandia already has a good solid defense. One thing I am going to do when I can figure out how to alter settlements beyond banner codes for war sales without the game crashing on me as soon as I try to open Sandbox is set all of the settlement levels to level 1. And the reason for that is simple. The Saxons didn't build with stone often. I may keep 1 or 2 cities, you know, but we'll just have to see. I mean, it's really, yeah. So, that's basically the rundown of the mod. All of the nobles have new names. If I go over here to the heroes and I check Vlandland here, delicious. All of their names have been changed, they've been Saxonized. They still sound similar to how they would have been. So, for example, this guy, he comes from the Dayfolkun, his name is Ekerand. I just named him Edgebrand for his Anglo-Saxon name, so it's similar. I think it's kind of funny. This is Thomund here, he's now a Thunormund, so that's that. The other thing I did was I added some custom wanderers, so let's take a look at that. I know this has been one take, so it's been very rough going, and I've sort of been bouncing back and forth, but I wanted to give you the sort of spirit of the mod and what it's like. You can see here, if we go to Vlandland Wanderer, the Nun, that is not a standard surname or, I suppose, character end name for a Vlandian Wanderer. So there's a couple of new ones, and I think they're fairly interesting, so I won't spoil anything about them, but they all have customized equipment to be consistent with Bannerlord standards, but also relevant to the mod. They have balanced skills. A lot of people, when they make these mods, I've noticed, is, look at this guy, he's got a delicious axe.
What is your name?
I mean, that thing, that's one of the custom axes I made. I think it's better than the Sturgian one, the one that the Sturgian nobles get, the two-handed Hrafmund. That is an awesome name. If you know Old English, that is a noble name right there. Anyways, going back to Wanderers, a lot of people like to make their Wanderers really OP, or their troops really OP. Not so with this mod. If anything, you're going to be a bit underpowered, and that's by design. I enjoy the challenge of, you know, hard Bannerlord, so I decided to try and make it as balanced as possible. The last thing I want to talk about is brief video cut here. I thought about making this one take, but that is no longer the case. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you a demo of the troops in action. Let's go over to the custom battle menu here. Switch to main mode. There we go. Alright, Vlandia. I left the regular Vlandians in the custom battle menu so that you can mess around with them and see how they would fare against each other, because the Vlandians are modelled after the Normans, so why not have some awesome Norman on Saxon, you know, reenact history a little bit. You can finally defeat, you know, William the Bastard and that sort of thing. Let's just get a random battle. Let's just, you know, see what we get. So, alright, looks like we're fighting the Normans after all. Perfect. Let's get rid of all the Saxons here, and then we'll keep our Saxons. Yeah, we'll keep militia, whatever. Alrighty. Yeah, the militia troops I updated as well to be proper. The last thing you want for your immersion is to have a bunch of crossbowmen show up in your settlement defense, so that's not right. No, it is right. We get riders though. And this is your ideal army composition in Bannerlord. If you want to play true to historical accuracy, you wouldn't have this, but in the game right now, archers are dominant, and you would normally play with max archers for the best possible effect. Here, we'll keep this. This is good. But I'll change the troop composition to be perhaps more accurate to things. We're slightly outnumbered. We are probably outgunned, given the absolute shock and awe number of crossbow these bastards are going to be levying down on us. Looks like we're going to get a fairly good... Oh, we get Thanes and Varang. That's very nice. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about this in the main section of the video. Many people don't know that the Anglo Saxons who defected from England after the Norman conquest, a lot of them went and joined the Varangian Guard in the Byzantine Empire. So this is my sort of nod to that as a tier 6 infantry with good two-handed skill, because the Varangians use the Dane axe, which is absolutely brutal weapon. Yeah, why am I this? Yeah, I'll just use the yeah, that's a fairly appropriate looking character. It's about as good as it gets. We'll change the battle to be open field for worst case scenario. So let's go, this is the best one for testing. Let's make it daytime so you can see what's going on. Alright, I may cut that out of the video just to save you some time, but here's our army. These guys, you guess if you wanted to, you could have a Ride of the Rohirrim thing. They look similar enough, don't they? Alright, so Vlandians, what do? So they come at you with an infantry force flanked on both sides with cavalry. So I think the plan here is going to be to have our stout infantry, our two-handed infantry, holding fire in cavalry circles on side to side to basically hold their cavalry in place while our archers and skirmishers shred them to pieces. We'll have a main infantry square of the strongest infantry with shields and no throwing weapons, so that will be our Thanes, our Varangers, our Hirdman, etc. So we'll Hirdmen, I should say. That's basically how we're going to do this battle. I just want to make sure quickly that I am in fact on the defending side. Yes, very good. Because typically when you play this game, that's how you're going to play. The AI is relentless. It will run for the high hills whenever it's outnumbered, and then it will barrel down on you as soon as it thinks it can, you know, destroy you. So it's very irritating, but that's how you have to play the game. We're going to want to hold the height probably. Here, this is good. This ridge here will provide some protection against their archer fire. So what we'll do is we'll have the square on top shielding, we'll have our skirmishers behind, we'll have our archers behind, and we'll basically use the cavalry on top of the hill to act as a shield once the enemy has run up it and slowed down. So that's basically how we'll play this. We'll put our 4th division over here. We'll put our 4th cavalry group there. Very nice. So now what we do is we split up our infantry. We need... I can't click. Oh yeah, that's because the recording icon's over it. Bugger. There we go. We'll give these guys shields height here. We'll have a skirmisher division here. The best way of doing that is to give them polearms, throwing weapons and shields. And then for our 6th, we'll have no shield, which will ensure that we get our two-handed axemen here. It looks like we have some recruits as well. Alright, no problem. What we'll do is we'll just put them in a low-tier division. We'll split them up like that. So, there we go. 7 and 6 is our two-handed shock division. These people will be told to hold fire. And the reason being is they don't really have throwing weapons except for two-handed, throwing axes. We don't really want them throwing those. They're not super useful. So we'll put our 6th division here. We need to make sure though that we are not. Here, I haven't assigned my skirmisher division yet either. Let's do that quickly. Let's see how that looks. I see a lot of javelins. I'm satisfied with that. 39's a bit small. Let's see if we can get any more. No, not really. Okay, that's a good division. We'll leave the rest to be infantry. Alright. So we'll have our skirmishers. No, we'll put 6 over here. You want your skirmishers? Here's a good tip for you. You're going to want your skirmishers to be firing at the enemy from the left side. And the reason is because every single character in Bannerlord is right-handed. So they hold their shield on the left. So you can imagine if I'm an enemy and I'm coming this way, my shield is going to be on the left-hand side. So these guys, when they defeat the enemy cavalry, they're going to be pelting me with javelins from the left where my shield isn't blocking. So that's why you have... And similar thing with your archers. That's, you know, we're going to put... I've had the best results testing with 1 archer division, so we'll just keep it there for now. And we will hold fire because they only get 1 quiver, some of these guys. So here's what should happen. Hopefully, these guys will hold things down and absorb the enemy archer fire. No, we'll actually put them back here so that their legs are kind of shielded by this hill. That would be good. There we go. Alright. And then our peasant division, we can just supplicate this, we can just reinforce this division here with peasants. They're not super useful, so we might as well just keep them there. And then we'll have our cavalry wings guarding the flanks. So if all things go well, and I'm not saying that they will, we should win this, alright? So let's do it. That's not ideal. Oh, I'm super slow as well. This guy does not do his cardio. You can see how terribly he's running up this hill. He's definitely been spending, you know, way too much time in Oosterkol Castle, choking down butter from the nearby village. He's fat, he's slow. Yeah, good news is they start far enough away that I don't just get immediately perforated by crossbow bolts. We'll also tell our infantry to hold fire. They don't really have throwing weapons. If they do have them, it's a detriment, because what happens is they just hold them out, and they look for a target, and then they're easy targets for archer fire. Alright, I'm gonna do something anti-Christian here, and I'm gonna ask this gentleman for his shield. If I can aim, that is. I'm gonna need a shield to survive this battle. Here, we'll get rid of this. We need to be using one-handed. Use this bronze bossed round shield here. Some custom shield that I made. Anyways, so you can see, yeah, see, look, here's what they do. They flank with their cavalry, and they have a main infantry force just coming straight at you. So these guys, hopefully what will happen is, as the infantry hit this square, they'll kind of wrap around, and we'll be able to lure the infantry to one side to reinforce our anti-cavalry stopping division there. And then what we can do is we can pivot the archers to fire a more effective, you know, sort of sortie against the cavalry. So here we go. See if we can wait out their crossbow. That's the other thing about Vlandia that, if you don't know, is they run out of crossbow bolts quickly because they don't have a lot of bolts. They get a shield, so they only get 1 bag, and each bag only has 18 bolts. So it's a good thing that we put the skirmishers here as well, because they're kind of exposed, so the fact that they have shields is excellent. Once they've expended those bolts, those crossbow are going to become infantry, so we're going to be mindful of that. But this is what I was talking about earlier with cavalry. You want to use them. You want to use them as your, defense. They're blocking, I would say, 70% of the bolts. I mean, look at their shields. They're going to turn into porcupines if they're not careful. So, yeah. What we can do, actually, if their cavalry are holding, we can counterfire with our archers here, so we can pick off some of their crossbow. Just do that. We have a height advantage, so that should give us some help. Here, we'll move the infantry forwards temporarily for the moment. Their archers are also kind of grouped together, which makes it easy, because it will tell the archers to stop. That way, if they die, they don't just they don't walk around. They like to do that. They like to reform once they lose a couple of people. There we go. We're getting some good kills there. Death spam is not great, but it's positive, so we'll take it. Actually, no, this is unacceptable. We're going to move these guys forward. Which division is that? I can't see. Oh, there we go. See if we can't get these cavalrymen to absorb some more of the arrows. There we go. The infantry are doing their work now, doing their bit. This is what you want to use infantry for at Bannerlord, is soaking up arrows. That's literally all they're good for. And tell them to stop as well so that they don't walk around. There you go. Alright, we've caused the enemy to start advancing. This is absolutely 100% brilliant. We can now tell our infantry to... no, we can't actually, that's a lie. Because they'll fire at us. No, they've stopped firing. Okay, now's the time to move the infantry back. We can line them up temporarily so that they move faster. Let's also retreat our archers so that they're not in the line of cavalry, because that will be worst case scenario, is our archers get trampled by cavalry. So let's tell the infantry to square, to move them in front again so that they're doing their bit, taking those arrow shots. And we can tell our archers, we can probably move them up here a bit. Yeah. Here's what else we'll do. Since the cavalry are blocking, we'll kind of spread out our skirmishers here. You can go there, gentlemen. And you can fire your... No, you can't. Stop. Alright, there we go. Look at that. We've reduced their crossbow division by half. This is absolutely best case scenario. That's the Vlandians, I would say the deadliest part of their force is their crossbow. So that's what you really want to get rid of. And we can actually make them... here we go. See, look, cavalry goes in. We can tell our 3rd division to go after that. We can also charge with our 5th and see if we can't get some kills over there. Look at that. They've already lost. Yeah, there we go. Nice. So this is exactly what you want. You want your infantry on the flanks to get rid of the cavalry. And unfortunately that's not happened on our right, so what we can do is we can tell the 4th to charge, we can tell the 6th to attack their cavalry, same with the 7th. Go, there we go. Alright. We're going to pivot our archers to get away from that cavalry force, and we'll move them up, so that they can sort of get a side angle on our infantry here, the enemy infantry that is. There we go. That's what we want. Alrighty. Things aren't going well on the left. Let's see if we can't get them to attack the enemy archers and drive them back a little bit. Infantry can be told to charge. There we go, look at that, boys. Alrighty. See if we can't get some kills here. You know, Anglo Saxon kings, they're not sort of Charles III types, cowards, you know. They lead from the front. That's what they did. So let's do a bit of that. Right, you sons of little Vlandian French dogs. No, I'm in a spot. Oh, they're routing. Alright, their infantry's routing. Alright, next phase. Line up your infantry and move them. And get your archers to charge on the enemy archer division. This battle is won, I would say. Yeah. We're going to drive their archers back by charging with our cavalry and our infantry, and that'll be that. We're gonna flatten them, run them over, sort of like a semi-truck goes over a red squirrel. There we go. Not sure what these analogies are, but it's not every day I do this sort of thing, so you have to bear with me. Now I'm almost dead. Let me go down here. There we go. Dead. But there we go. There's the Anglo Saxon troops in action. If if you use them smartly, they can destroy a superior force, a better enemy, but it comes down to tactics, which I think don't get used enough in this game. There are some very good tactics channels where you can learn this sort of thing. There you go. Alright, so this concludes the sort of video that I wanted to do, so that's basically the mod. I hope you enjoyed it. If you think it's worth uploading, tell me, and I'll put it on NexusMods. There you go. Alright, I hope you will have a blessed day. Bye-bye.